This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. The veteran's name is Alfred Johnson. He was born on July 16th, 1920. He served in the Army Air Corps during World War II. He achieved the rank of Staff Sergeant. We are recording this on March 14th, 2014. I'm Will Hines and I'm conducting this interview. No relation. So Mr. Johnson, can you kind of start talking about your life before the war and where you grew up? And you grew up here, right?
Yeah, grew up in Welford, about 4 miles up in the country where the landfill is located now.
Mm-hmm. And you, so did you have any brothers and sisters? Big family?
Yeah, I had 5 brothers and 4 brothers, 4 brothers and 4 sisters.
Oh, so 9 kids in the family.
There's 9, yeah, and I was next to the youngest.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And so you probably remember the Depression pretty well.
Very well.
How did it affect your family and kind of around here?
Well, we were poor. You didn't have any spending money. Mm-hmm. You grew most of what you ate, and you had to struggle to make ends meet.
Did you work any jobs when you were younger, or did they have any jobs?
No, not any jobs available for us then. Mm-hmm. I worked on the farm.
So y'all did have a farm?
Oh yeah.
How big was your farm?
86 acres.
86 acres.
Yeah.
So did you wake up at 3 a.m., go?
Wake up about 5 and go milk 1 or 2 cows, eat breakfast, and then catch the bus about 7 o'clock to go to school.
And where did you go to school?
WLT, Welford.
Really? Wow. So,
Welford, Lyman, and Tuckapaw, WLT.
I've never even heard of that.
Huh?
I've never heard of that.
That was the school that sit over here on the other side of the church.
Oh, really?
The one that burned?
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Wow. Huh. So you get picked up in the bus?
Rode the bus and get home in the afternoons about 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Would you work any more on the farm after that?
Oh, yes. Yes, I had duties to do, and then I had cows to milk most every night. Wow. We had cows, we had chickens, we had hogs, had mules.
Wow.
And my daddy sold milk and butter and eggs.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever take that to the market, or where did you sell that out?
He had a route.
Mm-hmm.
He had a route and had regular customers that he furnished certain items. Mm-hmm. And then in the summertime we'd have produce. We raised produce and we'd sell that.
Mm-hmm. So where did you go to high school?
WLT.
WLT. Did you play any sports in high school?
What?
Did you play any sports in high school?
I played basketball the last 2 years of high school.
That's awesome.
And we practiced at the community building at Lyman.
Mm-hmm.
If you know where the community building was over there.
I do, yes, sir.
We practiced the basketball there, and then I walked home. It was 4 miles.
Yeah, because you didn't have a ride home, I bet.
No, you didn't. Yeah, you very seldom see a car.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I'd walk out the Inman Highway down to the river and then turn and go up and...
Were they mostly dirt roads?
Yeah, it was all dirt roads. Yeah.
Wow.
And occasionally you'd see an automobile, not often.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd practice on Monday, play on Tuesday, practice Wednesday and Thursday, and play Fridays. So 3 days a week I'd practice and walk home after practice.
And then would y'all travel to other places to play in a bus?
Yeah, we went by bus, boys and girls together. And we played like Cowpens and Inman and Woodruff and Fair Forest.
Wow. So So you graduated high school
Yeah, in 1937.
1937, and what did you do after that?
After I graduated, I started to junior college, TII, which is now Spartanburg Methodist.
Really?
Do you remember when it was, ever heard of it as being TII?
I never have.
I haven't. What was TWI? What did it
TII
stand for?
was Textile Industrial Institute.
Wow.
And the system that they had was if you and I were partners, and I'd go to school 2 weeks, and you'd work a meal 2 weeks. Then you'd go to school, and I'd run your job 2 weeks, and we alternate.
Wow.
So you worked in a mill?
No, I didn't, but that's the way that the system worked down there. But I went back and forth as a day student. $1 tuition and $1 for a ride per week. And I went 6 weeks, and I decided that I wasn't college material, and I quit. But my daddy told me if I would go 2 years down there, then he'd get me through Clemson 2 years. But I thought I had enough education. I found out later I didn't. But
So you, so once you stopped working that, did you start working on the farm again?
I went to work on the farm, and then in 1938, when I became 18 years old, I put in my application at Pacific Mills at Lyman. And in August, they sent for me. I went to work in the mill at Lyman in 38, in August of 38, and worked till 42 when I went into service.
And what did you do at the mill?
I worked in the folding room, which what they call a sample room, and I went all over the plant, picked up pieces of cloth and brought it back, and the ladies cut swatches out of it and sent them out, and then I had to wrap them and mail them for samples to the customers.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you did that for 4 years?
I did. I did.
Do you remember what the pay was?
Yeah.
What was the pay?
$12.50 a week, 33.5 cents an hour.
33.5 cents an hour.
Overpaid, weren't you?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd do that.
And right after I went to work at Lyman, I bought my first automobile.
Really?
I bought an A model Roadster, 31 A model Roadster, for $65.
Was it new or used?
No, it was used.
How much was a new one at that time?
A new one I think was around $300, Ben. And
65.
I'd say you got a good deal.
yeah, this one had rather than the A model wheels on it, it had 616-inch wheels on it, spoke wheels,
Mm-hmm.
which was real fancy.
Right.
Had a rumble seat in it.
Did you pay cash?
Huh?
Did you pay cash for it?
Yeah. Yeah. Bought it from a Satterfield boy at Lyman.
Wow. Isn't that something?
So did you still live on the farm? when
Yeah.
You had your car?
Yeah, I still lived at home and went back and forth, and then later on I traded, got a Oldsmobile, and that's when I started dating. That's when I started dating Elsie.
Really?
Yeah.
Where'd you meet Elsie?
They moved up in the country. They moved up there in 1936, December of 36. And she started school at Welford. And she was in the 7th grade, and I was in the senior.
Woo.
And she caught my eye right off the bat, but she was 16 before we ever started dating.
Mm-hmm.
But we worked on the farm together
Okay.
We would help them and they would help us on the farm. She had two brothers and we did a lot of work together on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would share the produce, share the meat. They work for you, you work for them, and you would share, or did you just get paid?
No, this you did your own,
Mhm.
but we would help them with their work. You know, and, mostly was the cotton,
Mm-hmm.
hoeing and pausing cotton and
Mhm.
stuff like that. That was most of the work that we exchanged each other.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Wow. So did you get the letter you were drafted? When did you get that letter, and how was that?
Well, when I became 18, I had to register.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had to register when they became 18 years old for the draft. And in March of '42, a boy that was working with me in the plant, we went down to the and tried to enlist in the Air Force, and they took him. And they wouldn't take me because I was 8 pounds underweight. So I came on back home, and then he went on in the Air Force, and later was killed in Australia.
Mm.
Fell off a truck, broke his neck.
Wow.
But then they came along in September and sent me a letter that I was to be inducted.
Were you excited when you got that letter? Were you?
Well, no, I figured it was coming,
Mm-hmm.
and so we went down to Fort Jackson.
And where's Fort Jackson at?
It's Columbia,
Okay.
and that was the big induction center, you know, and it's still a big base
Right.
down there now.
Mm-hmm.
And we went down and we did all the preliminary examinations and paperwork, and then they said, okay, you got 2 weeks to finalize your business at home. And so I came home for 2 weeks and then went back and was inducted into the Army.
Wow.
And was there for 3 weeks, and then they sent me to Miami and said I was in the Air Force.
So you were in Fort Jackson for 3 weeks?
Yeah.
And what did you do there during that 3 weeks?
Oh, you pulled guard duty and you picked up cigarette butts and policed the area. And I got lucky, and I got with a couple of guys that had been in the service before. And so we did the latrine in the barracks.
You got lucky?
Yeah, we'd do the latrine, and then we were through for the day, you know. But then I still had to pull guard duty, and of course, you know, you were taking tests and all that stuff, trying to decide where you were best fitted or where they wanted to send you.
So they sent you to Miami Beach?
Yeah, so it was Miami Beach.
By train or by?
By train, day coach.
Ooh.
There's 50 of us. Went on a day coach. Had a big box of sandwiches up there. And we was, you know, speculating as to where we were going, but we thought, well, sure, we going to Fort Wheeler or Fort Benning.
Mm-hmm.
But we riding at night, and we realized we were in Florida, but we didn't know what part of Florida, because, you know, you go through the little stations like Welford and Duncan, and you don't know where you are.
Right.
So next morning we pulled into Miami, and we got off the train, and they said, you're in the Air Force for the duration plus 6 months.
Wow.
Wow.
And then we went out to Miami Beach, and we stayed in the hotels out there. They took over all the hotels.
So was that pretty nice?
Oh, very nice, yeah. But you had to keep it. You had to keep it nice.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't allow a spot to be there. They come in with the white gloves and all.
Oh god.
We were there for 3 weeks. We were supposed to take basic training at Miami, and the first week we did tests and took shots and went through all kind of examinations, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second week we pulled guard duty and did stuff like that until one day they said, we're going out, start basic training. So we go out one day and we sit under a palm tree and listen to lectures all day. We go out the second day and we have these old Springfield rifles.
Oh God, from World War One.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you seen one of those?
Mm-hmm. I know what they are.
Yeah, and they only had enough for half of the platoon. So half of them carried them in the morning and the other half in the afternoon. And we went out for one day like that. And we came in and there was a list on the bulletin board, sheet after sheet of guys shipping out.
Wow.
And we made up a troop train and left there, went to Amarillo, Texas to go to school.
And you went to, so you had a couple days of basic?
Yeah, a couple days.
And then you got shipped to Texas to learn how to work on B-17s.
B-17s, yeah.
B-17s was in Texas.
Yeah.
And what did you learn once you got to Texas, kind of, about the B-17s?
Oh,
What did you
well,
focus
we
on?
started with, you had to learn about the hydraulic system. You had to learn about the instrument panels. And then you'd take a carburetor, take it apart, put it back together.
Cool.
Or you take another piece of the engine and take it apart, put it back together. And then they had an engine mounted outside there, and you go out there and start up the engine and run it. And you did basically everything that was to be done to a B-17, like changing the fuel tanks, changing the engine, changing the propeller.
Mm-hmm.
So
you probably knew that engine backwards and forwards.
Yeah, you did a lot of that. And all the mechanical phases of the 17, you're supposed to learn about those.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd tell you, you'd take a carburetor and you'd take it apart, put it back together, and they'd say, well, now that's obsolete. But you learn how to do it,
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that you spent, how many weeks did you spend in Texas learning the B-17?
We were in Texas about 4 months.
Wow.
And we go to school this week. We go to school from 8 to 4. Next week we go from 4 to 12. Next week we go from 12 to 8. So you rotated shifts.
What was the most difficult thing about that time of your service in Texas?
The worst thing was Ben, when we went to school at 12 o'clock at night, and you get up about 10 o'clock and go to the mess hall and eat breakfast.
Wow.
And then everybody had to line up, double file. Every barracks had to line up double file till everybody got out of the mess hall, and then march to school about a mile.
Wow.
And cold, that's the coldest place I've ever been in my life.
Texas.
At Panhandle, Texas, yeah.
Wow.
And we were there in December.
Mm.
We were there in November, December, January, and February. And we didn't have warm water in the latrine until Thanksgiving.
Wow.
We had to take cold showers.
That sounds awful.
It was tough, but And then some of them guys, you'd have to give them a GI bath. They wouldn't take a bath till you give them one. Of course, after they gave them a GI bath, you know what that is.
I don't.
Well, that's where they'd take you and put you in your shower and scrub you with a brush.
Woo!
So you take a shower after that.
So you spent 4 months in Texas
Yeah,
working on B-17s, and you never ended up working on B-17s?
never ended up working on a B-17 at all.
But you knew it.
Yeah,
And so after learning about the B-17s, you were sent to learn about B-24s?
yeah. Then they shipped us. There was only one guy that I knew that went to Amarillo, Texas. We went together, and he was from Bronx, New York, and we were good friends. So we ran around together a lot while we were up in Michigan. But I never did see him after we left there. And
So you went up to Michigan at the
for
Willow
24s,
plant?
went up there for 24s. Yeah.
And how long did you stay up there?
We went to school. I was up there about 2 months. We went to school 6 weeks.
And then you spent a lot of your time in the Willow plant learning.
We did. Yeah.
And
You went,
is that where they produced all their B-24s?
That's where they were. Yeah, that's where they're assembling B-24s. It was amazing. It was unbelievable. The way they could turn those B-24s out.
I heard a crazy stat. Didn't they produce like one every minute or 5 minutes or something like
They
that?
produced them pretty fast. I don't remember the exact account, but they were turning them out, and it was. It always blew my mind as to how they could take that plant over and convert it.
To a military plant?
Yeah, into making B-24s. Because Ford had just built the plant. And they just took that thing over and of course they were always improving, your mechanisms to put stuff together.
Right.
And it was kind of a learning process back there for them too, for the country. But they did it. It was amazing.
So after you learned about B-24s at the Willow plant,
Yeah,
you went to California?
went to California, went to Blythe, California. And the first thing I did out there, well, to begin with, they assigned us to a air drone squadron. Or I was assigned to an air drone squadron. And that is a group that, after the infantry takes over a base, like Japan take over an airfield there, then we would move in and maintain that field and equipment till the regular forces got there.
Okay.
And
I thought I'd heard something called the CBs.
yeah,
Were they separate from y'all? What did?
yeah, CBs were separate from us. Yeah.
Okay.
But we never did. They finally said, "Well, we don't need you as an air drone squadron." So then they assigned us to the different bomber groups on the base, and I went to the 7th bomb group then, and that's where I did inspections and.
Did you do maintenance ever?
Yeah, I did inspections for a while, and then I worked on line equipment and took the little old putt-putts out of the airplane and take them in the building there and clean them up, tune them up, put them back in the airplane. That's the one that runs on the ground while it's sitting on the ground to keep the electrical system and all going.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's a little
So the
gas.
electrical system is going all the time.
Yeah, gasoline putt-putt.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. and it's.
Is
Have
it
you
like
ever
a
been
generator?
on the B-24?
Is it like a generator?
Yeah, kind of like a generator. It ran the generator.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on a B-17. I don't know. I don't think I've been on a B-24.
Hadn't been on a 24.
No, sir.
Well, if you ever get a chance, they bring one into Greer, to Greenville or Spartanburg every once in a while. If you ever get a chance, come down and go through the B-24. There was two ways that you got into B-24. One was through the Bombay doors, and the other one was through the nose wheel. You climb up over the nose wheel, and that's where the bombardiers sit.
Right.
And then you climb on up into the cockpit. And after I did worked on line equipment and all this other, and then I did inspections, and then I got transferred to 3rd Echelon, and that's where I spent most of my time changing engines, putting new engines on B-24s.
So what would the purpose of putting new engines in be? Would the engine just
Every so many hours you had to change the engine, and or if it had problems.
How long would it take to change an engine for a B-24?
You could change it in a day. There's only 4 bolts that held a engine, and that was a what was it? 2400 radial engine. Double ignitions at 12 cylinders, I believe, 24 spark plugs. And you had a section in the hangar that they built up the engine. You had civilians that were doing that. They would build up the engine, put it everything together, and then my crew would take it out there and bolt it onto the airplane. And it has a oil cooler about yay big around, and that had to be put up on the side. That was the hardest job there was to put that air cooler on.
How heavy was it?
2 straps, very heavy. It was about that big around, about that long, had 2 straps on this end, and had a hose at the top, and you had to hold it up there and get those hoses on there, then get the straps on there, and then you had the safety wire every bolt, every nut. After you got them tight, then you had to take copper wire and safety wire. And I had a crew of 4 that we changed engines.
And so are you working on planes that are training planes or that are about to go?
Yeah, we trained in combat crews, yeah.
Okay. So the base that you were on was a combat crew training base.
Yeah, both of them at Blythe, California, and then they moved us to Walla Walla, Washington. And I spent almost 2 years at Walla Walla, Washington.
Probably through what, 45? Is that?
Yeah. We let's see. I went up there and 42. We were in Blythe, and 43. I came home and got married.
So you were on leave and you came home and married?
Yeah, in 43. And then she came to California to live with me in December. And then we came home on furlough in March or April. And while I was here, they moved to state of Washington. And we had to go back through California and then on up to state of Washington. And we spent the rest of our time in Walla Walla, Washington.
Wow.
And
so you were working on B-24s again?
Yeah, and training combat crews. And it was right. A lot of interesting things, especially after I got into the third echelon section, where we was changing engines, and a crew would be out, on a flight mission, and they'd develop engine trouble, and they would not attempt to bring the airplane back to the base. They'd look for a wheat field or something and set it down in the wheat field.
Wow.
And then the crew would go out there and repair whatever was wrong with it. And then we had pilots that would go out and fly it out of there.
Huh. That's crazy.
Yeah. You have the fan on?
I was trying to cut that light on right there.
Oh,
On
no,
this
it's
one?
fine.
Is it okay? Do you
Yeah.
think the color's good enough?
Yeah.
The light's okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fine. So, I bet you still remember a lot about B-24s.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Do you still remember a lot about the engines and
Yeah.
everything that you did?
Yeah, I wonder if I could start one up now, though. After we changed the engine, then you had to, what they call slow time it for 30 minutes. And one would get in the cockpit, start the engine up, and you had to keep one sitting on the ground with a fire extinguisher, just in case of fire, And when you got through with installing an engine, they had inspectors that come out and inspect the job.
Mm-hmm.
And of course you had to call the prop man, he come and put the prop on. And then they'd come out and they'd inspect everything that you did to see that it was right. Then you had to slow time it for 30 minutes.
And what does that mean?
Just run it at about 1,200 RPMs. Just sit there and let it run for 30 minutes. And then they would, after you did that, then we had engineering officers, pilots that would take it up for a test hop. And you could go with them if you wanted to.
Did you ever? Did
I
you
did.
ever go with them?
I didn't, but I had one boy that he went all the time.
Have you ever? Did you ever fly in a B-24?
Nope, never did.
Never flew in one.
I'd check out a shoot and then check it out.
I don't blame you for that.
Yeah,
I think it'd be really neat to fly in one now, though. That'd be
yeah.
because I do know they bring them into. You're right, Greer or Spartanburg or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, they
Every
do.
now and then.
And they brought back, while we were in Washington, they brought back 25 that had been in combat. And we had to tow them out up in an open field. And once a week, you had to go up there and pre-flight all those airplanes. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And got a lot of got to see a lot of them that had been shot up, had
You see a lot of bullet holes.
bullet
you see a lot
holes
of-
all through, yeah.
Was that they were probably using the Pacific, weren't they?
Yeah, what?
Were those planes using the Pacific theater?
Oh yeah, they used a lot of them in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, they was, there's a book out, and I can't think of the name of it now, that a boy from California, he was on a B-24 that went down in the Pacific. And he and one of the pilots and another crew member got on rafts, had 2 rafts, and they spent 48 days on the raft. One of them died. The Japs shot up one of their floats, so they only had one. and they finally drifted into an island, and they drifted 2,000 miles,
Holy cow.
and they drifted into an island, and it was a Japanese
No.
island. And there's a book, and I can't think of the name of it now. Ben, if I come up with the name of it, I'll call you.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
It is really interesting to read about their experiences. But we had a lot of experiences. So we out in California one night, we were working on we were at the end of the runway, and we were working on a plane and changing the plugs, and there was one of my crew was up on top of the engine, and that's about 10 feet off the ground, and there was a plane came in, and about 400-500 yards up there, slid out of the air, and the wing tip scraped into the runway, and it exploded
Wow.
and burst into flames. It killed all the
Holy
guys
cow.
on board. It blew them all out of the airplane.
Mm.
And I was on a stand, and I jumped off of that stand, and I looked up, and that guy was in front of me. How he got off the top of that, I don't know, but he was in front of me going up there.
Mm. Mm.
And we had one that caught on fire up in the air and kept circling, and they finally brought him in, put foam on the runway, and brought it in. Sometimes, they'd catch on fire, they could blow it out,
Yeah.
and sometimes they couldn't, but they brought that one in. So I had a lot of experiences like that.
Yeah.
And when we were in California, we were also training some Czechoslovakian crews to fly B-24s.
To fly B-24s. Wow.
Yeah.
Could they speak English?
Huh?
Did they speak English?
Yeah, they were all pilots.
Huh.
The whole crew was pilots,
Wow.
and they were over here training, and they were responsible for the airplane. If they cracked one up, they had to pay for it.
Wow.
Oh.
That was my understanding.
Right.
Mhm.
So how'd you get out of the service? Just serve your time and got
Yeah.
discharge papers?
We in September of '45, I went over to headquarters and checked to see what time span there was for me, and they said probably be spring before I got out. So we came home on furlough in September. We hadn't been home in 18 months, so
Mm.
we came home on furlough, got back out there, and lo and behold, I was out there about a month. They sent me up for discharge.
Wow.
Mm.
And we had a good friend. He and I worked together, and he was from New York, and they lived up the street from us. And we visited back and forth together a lot. And our daughter was born out there,
Really?
and their daughter was born 3 weeks later. So when we went up for discharge, we went up for the same date. And he was to go to LaGuardia Field, and I was to go to Seymour Johnson Field. So we went over to headquarters and asked if they'd change our location. And they did. They changed it to Oregon. So we went up there, and on Thanksgiving Day,
Wow.
Went up to Portland and got our discharge.
Is that 1945?
Yeah. And then we came back cross country together to St. Joe, Missouri
In a car?
in cars, yeah. We both had our cars out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you drove cross country in your
Yeah.
car
yeah,
in 1945?
yeah.
God.
We came home in 44 and took the car back with us, and then went on to the state of Washington, and then made one trip home from up there and back, and then came home. So we drove across country about 4 times.
Came home to welcoming arms with Miss Elsie.
Yeah, well, she was with me.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I
she
forgot
was
you
with
said
me.
you'd taken her out there.
Yeah, we were fortunate that she got to stay with me.
That's great.
Well, Mr. Johnson, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And thank you for giving me all your experiences and telling me what you did.
I hope it's something worthwhile.
Oh, it is.
70 years of marriage.